Hello, Culture Matters podcast. We are back with another culture topic. Follow me on Instagram, Jay Doran underscore the culture man. We release short clips on business, life, culture, leadership, also, et cetera, et cetera. And today I'm unpacking one of the topics. So we can go a bit deeper, these 1, 2, 3 minute videos. Follow me at Jay Doran underscore the culture man if you don't, to follow this weekly cadence. But I'm talking about manager versus leader. What's the real difference today? Manager versus leader. So, what is the real difference between manager and leader? I believe the word manager is, and why does it matter, right? Why it matters is the distinct understanding, that becoming aware of the distinction, not just the surface level distinction, but the underlying assumptions, I think can help one be less of a victim, less of a bully, and more of a courageous individual. So that's why you should listen to this episode. Manager, leader. I think manager becomes used as almost like a derogatory term, right? Who wants to be managed? But I think we have to take back the pride of management in this culture of ours, this country, this business culture, the pride of management. It isn't an either or. It's like, think of and then the idea of the leader is like this, holier than thou human above management. No, it's integration of values with knowledge and understanding. Knowledge, let's say head knowledge, understanding being the congruence between what one thinks and says and what one does. So think of leader representing the values piece, the the how one behaves, the who of the matter, the why of the matter. Think of management as in the what we're doing and the how to do it, the doing, the competency around a subject matter. Leadership is the competency around subjects, human beings. There's not such thing as leadership management. It's one and the same, but they become weapons or shields based on closed feedback loops in an organization. So, like, what is the difference between a manager and a leader? There isn't one outside of the weaponization or the idealization, right? The weaponization of you're just being a manager, and the idealization of who's the leader, the leadership. Part of why values are important to an organization, or can be, let's say, help an organization get to the next level, is values are an explicit representation of the behavioral patterns of the individuals that make up the organization. Oftentimes, though, what's not addressed in the creation of values is those are they're it's like a projection. It's like an externalization of what we're not doing. It's like when we're actually doing them and we're in it, we're not even thinking about writing them down and articulating them because we just embody them to such a degree. As an organization, and that's when organizations are small and they have engaged management, let's just say engaged leadership. There isn't even an org chart yet. So maybe, the leadership, there aren't even titles yet. There's just people gathering around a person, and they're persons who are acting out a set of values and beliefs, and how they relate to customers and how they relate to the people that become employed by them. That leadership is leadership are the values that are represented in the competence around what one is doing and how one is doing those, acting out that competence in respect to other people that are doing it with them. The teamwork, the work that the team is doing, complementary of each other to move the organization further. So, in a great respect, there's no difference between management and leadership. It's more of a management becomes a derogatory term when it's used, management, and leadership is an idealistic term. But management that doesn't lead, meaning management that isn't understanding of what it's doing and how it's doing and how to do it with others, and exemplifying the why and the how in how it leaves becomes, arguably is a pre condition for that. We need leadership, man. I don't want to be managed. So the management is structure, organization, an inevitable articulation of the hierarchy of competence, the social hierarchy that forms around people of varying degrees of competence around A, B, C, D, E, or F, G. So I wrote here, I'm sick of this topic. We are people. We are effed up. We need to get things done. We need to get things done. When I think of like management is a, a consequence of organizational development. Organizational development is a consequence of growth. Growth is a consequence of leadership, even without title, which is uh, a consequence of an engaged, let's say, accountable, founding consciousness that sells the original customers on a vision, and on a vision of how their money is worth less than what they're going to get, right? The outcome of what they get, service, product. And enough of that is happening where there's an internal sale happening where people choose to work, to trade their time and space to work with said consciousness, founding leadership. Uh, and the more people work for and with this idea, this organization, this LLC, or however it's structured, whatever the legal entity that protects the ownership, the shareholders from some type of personal liability, whatever you know legal entity is a conduit for the human beings that are acting out that purpose, that belief structure, that vision, that mission, the goals, whether they're explicit or just implicit, right? Whether they're articulated in symbolism and language and story, or just represented in how the founding leadership, management, right? Before management, we aren't even have an org chart yet. There's no titles. Just these values are being acted out with customers and pulling towards or pushing away the originating co-conspirators in this mission to serve customers. Drucker, the purpose of a business is to create a customer. Management becomes a consequence of growth. There's going to be a layer of accountability. It's like accountability comes from outside self. Self is a relationship with outside feedback loops and genetics, environment, the responsibility, the ability to respond of the individual, their character, which has a relationship with their competence, which is a relationship of their education, their lived experience, right? So just think of management. The idea of management is going to be based on knowledge of the what and the how. And the leadership is rooted in the why, the who, and the how we behave with one another. And so they're really the one and the same in a great sense, because but they become the management becomes, like I said, a pejorative or a negative connotation when values are not being represented at the highest. And that's a congruence between words and thoughts and actions of those with authority, influence, and power. Those that can say no and yes. Those that can use their title to influence another to do something that they desire them to do, with or without their counterparts autonomy, their own buy-in, their own acceptance in their thought and their word and their action. Using force, like do this versus this is why it's valuable. Here's um yeah, this is why it's valuable. Here's what we need to do. What do you think? Okay. And you know, let's oh, that's great information. Let's try to go further. I mean, that was an awkward way of explaining it in my estimation, but like an interactive, an interaction versus, and that's this thing based on it's imperfect because we're bound to have friction in working with people because a lot of it is intuitive, and especially in the beginning of a company it's intuitive, it's feeling, there's feelings more than thoughts, there's intuition more than reason, there's speed is everything. How much time do we have to tell our child, you tell your child not to walk off a cliff before it's developed its cortex frontal lobe, it's not going to listen to you. You might have to yell, use body language, grab it so it doesn't die. That's what it can be like to have a small organization. People have to, in the beginning, it's almost like they're so bought into the cult of the personality of the founder and the general why and what is being, what is there to be done. There's so much, there's got to be admiration and adoration and like a deep level of trust based on being so close to the founding consciousness that those first initial teammates, they're all just kind of on the same page. There's not a lot to discuss or figure out or think through because it's still so small. The founding consciousness is just getting things done, and everyone that attracts them in the beginning is a representation of their original consciousness, their original vision, mission, values, beliefs. Once it gets larger, autonomy of thought and individual personality is what creates scale. It's like people's thinking, people's problem solving, people's reason is so vital to get an organization to the next level. And I think management gets a bad rap when it's not able to listen and tell the truth at the degree necessary to attract talent and bring the best out of talent through its example in what it's doing, right? Those at a higher level of authority have to have the respect and trust of the people below them. And that's going to happen based on not only how they speak to them, but what the people below them see them sacrificing and doing. Nobody who wants to work for a tyrant, somebody that only talks at someone and doesn't live the things they expect of others. Living the values out that one expects of others is going to create trust, and speaking in a way that is not deconstructive against others' characters, but constructive of the others' characters is going to get the most out of them. But that's anyway. The values, right, versus knowledge. If we're talking about leadership is values, management is knowledge. No, what, how, the structure, organization, value, leadership is values and integration. How it's the why, it's the how and the who, how people relate to one another, who's on the team, how the values are lived out. So behaviors is values, leadership. What are they? How they are defined to be clear and understandable. How do we use them at work? We show responsibility. Responsibility is modeled. Accountability is given or taken, given in speech, taken in force. I quit, you're fired. It comes from the other. Responsibility comes from and through ourself relating to others, and accountability comes from others. And as yeah, growth open creates presupposes close. So as growth happens, it closes in on itself, absent honesty, and direction and understanding. And that's constantly changing as an organization's growing, just like as a person's life is growing. What we know, and I'm moving the hands around too much. Yeah, what we and Peterson outlines this like eloquently in Maps of Meaning with, there's what is, there what should be, and explored territory, unexplored territory, the known, the unknown, and what it's like to navigate as an individual between hope and anxiety. And anyway, follow me at Jay Doran underscore the culture man for more culture topics. And I will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Please leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast. Follow me at Jay Doran underscore the culture man.